All right, guys, welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of Inside the Huddle. We're back here in the studio for another episode. We got Coach Adams with us today. How you doing this morning, Coach?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
It's great to be back in the studio. And Panthers get back on track last Friday night as they took down the Two Rivers Gators 49-14. Coach, can you just kind of walk us through the Panthers' first conference win of the season?
Yeah, it just I'm glad we got our first conference win, and our guys played better, even though, Two Rivers is struggling this year or the last couple of years. But our guys played the way I wanted them to play, and we cleaned a little bit of our mistakes up. But I don't know, we ran the ball really well against them on offense. I know Nehemiah Norwood kind of gave us a spark there at running back. We moved him from wing back to back to the backfield because that's what he did in junior high, and he knows it well. So I think he's better back there. And then Angel Velasquez had a couple big runs for us and a couple touchdowns. And we completed a pretty good pass to Jaden Mullins there in the first half, right before trying to hurry up and get down the field before time expired. And just a lot of great things on offense, a lot of explosive plays, which I expected us to have. And then defensively, we were better tackling at times. And then the two touchdowns they scored on our defense were, one of them where one of our corners got beat, and then right before the end of the game, they dumped one off. We had him, bottled up. He made a guy miss and then dumped it off to a wide open receiver, and he made a play and scored a touchdown there late. But other than that, I was proud of our guys' effort and how we executed at times. I know the very first drive, I was not happy. We actually they actually stuffed us, and we had to give them the ball back. Our defense had to make a stop, and so just I don't think right when the game started, some of our players were ready to play mentally, and then that kind of woke them up, I think. But and so some of us coaches woke them up a little bit too, and we weren't very happy. And then we finally started clicking on offense, and but anyway, that was a big win. Moving on to Danville this week, and so we got our minds on Danville and nobody else because they brought back a coach of the past that had done a phenomenal job there. As a matter of fact, when I was an assistant coach at Rising, they beat us in the second round of the playoffs in 2017, 34-32, I believe, and went to play in the quarterfinals against Foreman, who won state that year, and it was AA. But he's back, and he's got them rolling and going in the right direction, and they've gotten better every single week this year. So,
Can you talk a little bit about just Danville and how they like to run that program up there on the X and the O's, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I mean they do a lot of things that a lot of people do. They're in the gun on offense, and then defensively they run a 50 front. They move their nose guard to what we call slide, which is a 1-5-9. Probably what we'll see more of. I don't know. They played mostly teams with no tight end this year, so it's hard to gauge what they'll give us, but I have an idea what I expect. But, when we played them, when I was an assistant coach, and this guy, Coach Crane, was the head coach, they were very physical. And I think he's gotten them, he's trying to get them back to that because last year they weren't very physical. And he's working on them this year, and I think they've gotten back to that mindset. He's trying to get them back to that mindset of, being physical, and they're playing good technique up front, and their O-line is doing what he's asking them to do. They're just not quite there yet, and but every single week they've gotten better, and I know I'll have them there eventually. But they're very big up front. They got some big old O-linemen, some big old D linemen that could possibly give us problems with what we do, and they're going to be coached up real well. Linebacker wise, they've got some guys that, man, they go to where they're supposed to go, but they're kind of like we have been this year, just not making tackles. And so, but we got to go in there ready to go and have the mindset of winning each possession on offense. We've got to, they're going to make us earn it, and so we've got to take advantage of any mistake they make, and we got to get turnovers and capitalize on those turnovers.
And you mentioned being there and be ready to play. If you look at the schedule, this is kind of the first Not close road game for the Panthers this year. How do you prepare your team to go on the road and play in a game that, in the long run has some implications on seeding that we'll talk about in future episodes?
Yeah, we haven't, so this year on the road we beat Poen, and then we lost a tough one to Jessieville, and I still can't believe how that game ended. But anyway, moving on. Road game's a little different. You're on the bus. We our routine on a home game is we eat our pregame meal, we come back and take a 30-minute nap. No nap longer than 30 minutes, just to kind of clear their minds, and then we bring the team in. We'll watch old game films or a movie, or they'll just chill and they're quiet. We make them be quiet and focus and think about what they're supposed to do, what we prepared for all week. What if they do this, and what are we supposed to do on the offensive line or defensive secondary if they get in this formation? What are we supposed to check? And so that's our time to focus. Well, on a road trip, we eat our pregame meal, we hit the road, and that's their time on the school bus to focus their minds and get their mind right. And it's different when you're traveling on a school bus, and and especially going to Danville, you might get car sick, stuff like that. That plays a big role into playing, and you're playing at someone else's facility. That's not your home. That's their home field, and you're not familiar with it. And so a lot of things play into an away game. And the main thing for me is to for our guys to focus their minds up and be mentally prepared, and then motivate themselves internally to go to someone else's house and win a ball game. And because it is tough to go on the road and win games, and so I think our guys have done a good job of that. I wasn't happy with the way we started the game versus Jessieville, but the way we came back in the end, and we never quit. We kept fighting. We had a chance there to win the game, and our guys were organized and ready to go at the end of that game. And I wasn't very happy how we played against Poen on the road. I don't think we were. I don't think we did a very good job handling those things on the road, which mental focus and getting out of our own head on somebody else's field, and handling sudden change when we turn the ball over or something doesn't go our way and Poen gets the ball back. I think instead of being excited about going back on defense, we kind of hung our head. And so those are things that, as a team, that I hope we've matured since then, and I think we have. I think we'll respond to those things better against Danville. I expect us to.
So you mentioned something a couple times in that statement about the mental side of watching the movie or game film or whatever it may be at a home game, and then the school bus ride is the time for the kids to get their minds right. How much do you think, and this is not really related to just Danville in general, just football in general, how much do you think of a player's play is implicated by the state of their mental floor space before they go into a game?
Oh man, I think it impacts a lot if you clear your mind and you focus on what you're supposed to do. First of all, we've prepared all week for it, but there's something about certain people react differently to different situations, and especially in an actual game. Some people, what I call, are deer in headlights, and some people are gamers. When the lights are on, man, they excel. And when the lights are on, deer in the headlight is they freeze up and they can't remember what to do because the moment's too big. And sometimes, and I do believe that some of those kids, as they mature throughout the season and as they get older, that deer in the headlights, eventually they overcome that. But early in the year, especially against Gurdon on our home field, we had a lot of miscommunication, and we didn't do a good job of, on the O-line, blocking what we call our offensive lineman rules. We missed a lot of assignments there against Gurdon that would have put us up a little bit more before halftime. And but no, I think that when the reason we tell them, we're going to stay quiet, we're going to focus our minds up, is because those kids, we say, think about what you're supposed to do in this situation. Think about what you're supposed to do in this situation, and take comfort in that because we've practiced it all week. We practiced it in the summer. And that's one thing I think our team, I do think we were focused versus Jessieville, especially on offense, when that I called that timeout down there on the goal line in the red zone and said, "Hey, look, we got 4 yards to score in 17 seconds, and if we don't score, get back on the ball. We're going red O, line back up in the same formation, and Wilson's going to call the play again. We're going to run it again until we score, or they celebrate on their field because they beat us." And our kids, they said Angel didn't get in. Our kids got back on the line, and that's what I'm talking about, the mental focus, that not freaking out in a pressure situation. When the pressure situation comes, you're in your mind. Not only have you practiced it all week, but your mind is, hey, I've been running this through my mind all day. It's like studying for a test. When they go to this front right here, I know exactly how we're supposed to block it. Or when they get in this formation, defensively, we know how to line up to it, and we know, hey, we know what play they're running. We got to stop it. And so that's what we mean. I think it plays a big role in winning a ball game, because if you're mentally prepared and we physically prepared all week, then I think you have an edge on your opponent.
Most definitely. Will Panthers look to continue the win streak in conference play this week as they travel up to Little John Country? And that will wrap up this portion. We'll be right back with a guest here on Inside the Huddle. All right, guys, welcome to the guest portion of Inside the Huddle here on episode 8 of season 2. And on the hotline with us this week is the head man of what is considered the class of 2A here thus far going into the conference season, is Coach Wilson over at Carlisle. And great to be talking with you this morning, Coach.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you having me on.
And everybody has been talking about the Boston, let me tell you, Coach. And so Can you kind of give us a description of, your team athletically? And y'all been scoring a lot of points, and I kind of want to talk about the offense first. Y'all are averaging 45 points per game, and y'all got a big game coming up this week. But can you talk about the offense and what y'all have offensively over there in Carlisle?
Well, starts up front. Coach Golden, our offensive line coach, has done a really good job with our offensive line. We replaced a couple starters, but the guys we've got back have done a really good job. We've got a quarterback that can make every throw that we need him to make. We've got a running back who does a really good job at breaking tackles, and then he's got really good breakaway speed. And then we've got what we think are the best group of receivers in 2A.
Most definitely. When you have all those put together, you have an absolute squad. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I don't know exactly what y'all have in numbers over there at Carlisle, but I assume a lot of those guys are playing 2A both ways, as a lot of smaller schools are. But y'all are only averaging / allowing just over 11 points per game. Can you kind of talk about the defense and how you like to run the defense over there?
Well, man, we're long and we're extremely athletic. And we play an attacking defense, man. We send a lot of pressure, and we just try to get after people.
Most definitely. And so you look back on your non-conference slate, and I guess the game that really, everybody was kind of thinking Carlisle preseason, but the game that really hammered that down was the defeat of Junction City, who dropped from 3A to 2A, and a lot of people thought, hey. I even heard some people talk, this could be a preview of the state championship, and y'all take care of Coach Ball and Junction pretty handily. And what can you say about that game, momentum-wise, and getting that hard non-conference game in early in the season to really test your kids?
Well, we wanted to know exactly where we stood when we played that game. Whether it be good or bad, we wanted to know what we needed to improve on. We wanted to know what we needed to be better at. But our kids, they really came out and they played hard. First half, the defense kind of carried us, and then second half, our offense really stepped it up. And I think we saw a lot of guys grow up in that game and just really gain a ton of confidence.
Yeah, and when you have a game like that early in the season and able to take care of a game like that and really your kids show up and show out in that manner. But moving on, you're undefeated in conference play, 3-0. Arguably your biggest game is this week, but we'll talk about that game and its specifics here in a little while. But can you kind of give us your overall thoughts on y'all's conferences? There's really not that many 2A schools now, it seems like, and y'all's conference is kind of top heavy.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Barrett does a really good job over at Poen, so we knew they were going to be a tough team going into the conference. Coach Pasankin always has a really good team at Hazen, and they've had a ton of success here recently. Then we've got England. England had a lot of returning starters from a playoff team last year, and then Bearden has improved quite a bit, and they made the playoffs this past year. So we knew it would be an improved conference from last year.
And I want to go right into, you talked about Coach Barrett over at Poen, and he's got his gentleman rolling over there. And from what I can see from the outside looking in, it seems like this game Friday night at Poen could really determine the 1 and the 2 in y'all's conference. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it looks that way right now. It's definitely going to determine who's in the driver's seat for the conference championship.
Most definitely. You schedule games like Junction in the non-conference to get your kids prepared for a game later on, that can determine who's in that driver's seat. And, what are you telling your kids, overall leading up to Friday night?
Man, we've just, the first thing we did is make sure that our kids know that how much of a challenge Poen's going to be. They're really well coached. They've got a quarterback that throws the ball well, and they play really hard. So that was the first thing we let our kids know. And then throw into the last time we went to Poen, it didn't work out very well for us. They kind of got after us really good 4 years ago. So we're excited to play in a big game like this.
Most definitely, and it's a game like that can determine a lot. But I kind of wanted to, just get your thoughts on Arkansas high school football as a whole. I ask every coach I have on this, and how many years have you been coaching?
This is my 5th year.
Okay, so you haven't, you're not. Some coaches have been coaching like 30 years, and I just think that's insane. But
I know, man.
It's
not me yet.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Toddy a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me all his stories, and I'm like, dude, you've been coaching like twice as long as I've been alive. But what are your thoughts on the general landscape of Arkansas high school football as of right now?
Man, I think it's really improved. I think that we've got a lot of really good coaches here in Arkansas, and then I think in a way we still, a lot of athletes still get overlooked because, some of the surrounding states I don't think realize the caliber of athlete and coach that we have here in Arkansas. So I think Arkansas high school football is definitely on the up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I try to get the coaches that I think have the athletes that need the coverage, and I think that a lot of kids don't get covered due to the talent in states that border us. And so you haven't been coaching as long as some other coaches, but what do you make of all the new I don't want to call them things, and it's not but the art of moving schools so often? What do you think that does to a football program?
That's a good question. I think that's not really something we've had to deal with here, but I could see there be an issue with developing really good team chemistry. I think that's probably where it would hit you the hardest. We're lucky where most of our guys that are seniors have been in school together since they were in kindergarten. So they all know each other and they're close to each other, and they've got really good, a really good bond, really good team chemistry. And I could see that being an issue if you had a lot of transfers in and out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you talk about these seniors, they've been in school, most of them since they were, kindergarten, first grade. Can you talk about, your team chemistry as a whole and how the close-knit community of Carlisle, has helped that with it being such a small town?
Sure. Well, this group of seniors, man, they're really fun to coach. They're goofy. They have fun at football. It's they're able to work hard, but still have a good time because football's important to them. And they're able to get after each other. They hold they hold each other to a high standard, and no one gets offended by it. They just understand that we're all working for the same goal. And then as far as community support, man, people love football here in Carlisle. Coach Clayton established that tradition back in the '90s, and we just get great community support. And they fill the stadium up on Friday night, and then our fans travel really well on the road. So it's a really good place to be coaching at.
Most definitely, a lot of some programs don't get that support, and it's really cool to see the support there. And I'm sure Friday night at Poe and y'all's fans are gonna make the trip down. It's gonna be an action packed house. Poe and they have their fans, and I'm sure the Bison will have their herd of fans. But man, I know it's been short, but I really appreciate you hopping on such short notice, and I'm looking forward to hearing about this big conference game y'all have Friday night.
We're looking forward to playing it, man, and I appreciate you letting me come on and talk about Carlisle football. I think we got a lot of good things going on, and we want everybody to know about it.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you once again, and I will talk to you later on, Coach.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and go Bison.
All right, guys, that right there was Coach Wilson at Carlisle, the class of 2A. Everybody is chasing the Bison, and the herd is stampeding down the runway, but they are on a collision course with the Indians of Poe for arguably, I think, the conference championship in that conference, most definitely. So at Malvern National Bank Friday night, the Carlisle Bison are going to come down to Poe and see if they can really set themselves in the driver's seat, and I think that's going to be very important. And the Panthers, they travel up to Danville, Coach Crane, trying to get the program rebuilt and the Little Johns back going, and the Panthers look to continue the win streak there in conference play. So I appreciate everyone listening. Huge shout out to the sponsors, Hartzell's Farms and Excavating and Razorback Camper Sales. Y'all be sure to check them out, like, share, and subscribe. And that is going to wrap up Season 2, Episode 8 of Inside the Huddle.